friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenboss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Welcome into another Gentle Friday. And these are spaces that we can come to for rest from the ongoing cycles of life and the news cycles. And my hope is that in coming together in this way once a week, that we can really bask in the gift of co-regulation. And I talked about this last Friday. And co-regulation comes from the polyvagal theory, which is the idea that our nervous system responds in many different ways to stressors. And co-regulation is one of the things we can do about those responses. And it is something that all mammals do, not just humans. And if you've spent any time with animals or lived on a farm, or you'll see that animals will often, when things get stressful, they'll huddle together for safety. And that's kind of biological, but they also will start breathing together and they'll start getting their heart rates in sync. And in doing that, they start to regulate throughout the herd a sense of calm alertness. And that is such a gift to have a calm and alert and present nervous system. And these Gentle Fridays are a way for us to come together. We're going to do a little quiet centering. We're going to do some breathing. So we can kind of all hone into this steady state of being. And then we'll try to maintain that state as we move through conversation. I'll do a little reading from a favorite book of mine called Consolations, and we'll do some sharing. And then you'll be on your way on your Friday evening, wherever it is you are. And hopefully you can bring some of this cohesive peace with you. Okay. All right. My pleasure. I'm so happy to be here and know that this is good for me too. That one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I need it as well. I live right outside of Minneapolis. I was just in the city yesterday delivering herbs. And it's a lot for anyone, far or near, to bear. And so we need each other to just remind ourselves that, that can happen. And then this can happen too. We can go out there and do action, and we can come back here and rest. So with that, let's take a moment. If you can close your eyes, if that's not available, no problem. Just take your gaze to a window or someplace where you can let your mind wander and settle. And from here, we'll start to draw our attention inward. And there's nothing fancy we have to do. My surest way to go inward and to anchor is the breath. So you can try that as well and start to follow the breath in and out through the nose. And it's so beautiful because our bodies want to regulate. And as soon as we invite our attention to the breath gets longer. It's like, oh yeah, I know just what to do. So follow that deep knowing in your body and let your breath lengthen. And imagine it kind of like a wave. So when you inhale and you get to the very top of the inhale, that you let it become a very smooth transition into the exhale. And then when you get to the bottom of the exhale, it rolls gently back into the inhale. So try that for a few rounds of breath. And if you get caught at any point on the breath, just smile to yourself and keep going. Breathing in, rolling into breathing out. Breathing out, rolling back into breathing in. And notice how your body feels as you breathe. Are there any spaces you can expand, maybe across the chest and draw the shoulders back? Can the jaw relax a little bit more? The muscles around the eyes, can those release? And we'll just invite these waves of relaxation to move through the body and through the mind. And knowing too that we're not doing this alone, that we're right here, all 27 of us breathing and being. And let's just take maybe one more smooth breath in and a smooth breath out. And then you can blink your eyes open, maybe take a little stretch, because we're a lot like cats and dogs and animals. Our bodies need to move and stretch. So see what your body needs in terms of its stretching. Yeah. And the next piece is a check-in. It's kind of like, let's just kind of put our finger on the pulse of ourselves and then also get a finger on the pulse of one another, just so we can kind of see how we're all doing. So I invite you to take a few moments to see how you're feeling and try to find 3 words that describe how you're feeling right now. And when you're ready, you can type those into the chat box. And I want you to know this is a safe place. You can feel anything, and all of it's welcome, and all of it is okay. And the more deeply and real we can get about how we're feeling, the closer we'll get um, to how to work with it. Like how to, if we don't know how we're doing, and it's actually quite amazing how long it takes for many of us, including myself, to be like, how am I doing? Because we can get in this action, the space of doing, but it's like, well, how am I in my being? Not what am I doing? That's easy to know. But how is my beingness being? How is it? So taking a minute, welcome in if you're just joining. We are writing in the chat box kind of 3 words that describe what you're bringing in tonight. How are you feeling? What's real for you right now? And trying to consolidate it into 3 descriptive words. And then I'll read through all of them. And that will give us a little bit of a sense of, I had this image when I set this up as like, we're all in the kitchen together and we're going to be making some like really tasty soup. So we have to see what are the ingredients that we're working with, before we can start throwing things in the pot. Like let's put the ingredients on the table. That's what we're doing right now. And then from here, we'll see it will come together, just like any recipe will when you've got skilled chefs in the kitchen, which we all are. We'll make this into something really rich and beautiful. All right. So I'm going to start reading. If you're still thinking and connecting with that, keep thinking and connecting and just write it in when you can. All right. So let's start at the top here. And you're going to see me taking deep breaths a lot tonight. And I invite you to do the same, either when I'm breathing deep or when you just need it, because it's kind of like what Katie said is that her dog Dexter taught her to shake it off. And when things get really big, dogs know really well. They are so good at just when they fight and they play with each other, right before, when they're done fighting and playing, they shake. And that shakes the energy off of them. And then they transition into something else. And when feelings grow and things start to build inside, we can shake too. That's pretty fun. But we can also just take a deep breath. And that's another way we humans can say, and kind of clear some space. All right. So here we go. Painful, tired, cloudy, ethereal, and still. Brave, united, motivated. Compassion, receptive, remembering. Scared, disappointed, angry. Shocked, grateful, and saturated. Yeah. Fearful, worried, and a little calm. So there's a little calm in there. Relaxed, hungry, sleepy. Feels like I'm treading water. Yeah. Migraine, tired, freezing. Oh. Sad, unsettled, grieving. Thank you, Cheryl. Tense, tired, foggy. Anxious, determined, loved. Sluggish, heavy, anticipatory. Energized, calm, pause. Angry, sad, and hopeful. Anxious, pensive, dreamy. Yeah, there is sort of a dreamy, ethereal, like, is this really happening? Yeah, and what's real, right? Like there's a lot of that very porous Neptunian energy in the air right now. So some of us are picking up on that. Yeah. Anxious, fearful, pain, remembering the source of being. That's powerful. Yeah. And we'll talk about that remembering too in the passage that I'm going to read. Heavy, exhausted, hopeful, anticipation, fearful, hopeful, calm, tired, lost, fatigued, cold, restless, righteous rage channeled into love and protection. Ah, hopeful, long, looking for Freya's birthday next week. Oh, that's nice. Lonely, worried, wishful, restful, thoughtful, sleepy. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge everything that we're bringing in tonight, like everything that we're feeling. And for those of you who are listening to this recording, your 3 words, we can add this in too, because this is a conversation big enough to last beyond time. That in the container of this space, this is what's showing up. This is what we're feeling. And to remind ourselves that it's pretty amazing we can hold so much, that we can hold things that seem to be contradictory. We can hold rage and love. We can hold, we can hold feeling tired, but fierce and active, right? That we can be energized and calm, right? So I'm seeing in a lot of your comments that you're holding dichotomies, and that is so awesome. And give yourself a pat on the back, because that's not easy work. It's really not, but it's what's required right now. If we're going to be honest, is we're building resilience internally and collectively right now. And part of that resilience is getting still, getting quiet, figuring out where we are, what we need, figuring out where our resources are, like who is out there, right? Who are sources that help me regulate? What sources help me activate in good ways? What sources help me activate in bad ways? And just becoming more clear about those things are only going to help us in challenging times. So let me take a sip of my chamomile tea. Let's see what they say. All right. This is my favorite tea brand is Traditional Medicinals, and they have really cool quotes. So I just put this in. I haven't read them yet. So let's read them together. Nature does not hurry. yet everything is accomplished by Lao Tzu. The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Yeah, nature is an amazing teacher, isn't it? Yeah, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And that brings me to, I think, the first point that I wanted to mention about as part of this way of co-regulating and being really real about where we're at and what's happening here in the United States and kind of what's to come is this idea that this is not a sprint, that this is a marathon. um, and marathons require very different training than a sprint, don't they? Marathons require steadiness. You have to be very well nourished, well fed. You need to be very well hydrated. You need to get good sleep, good rest, and you need to train. This is, we're kind of in training season. We're training for this marathon that's ahead while it's happening. And so I hope that in these Gentle Fridays that the things that I'm reading, some of my suggestions, and then your suggestions, which we'll get to in a little bit of what are you doing to stay centered, that, if we just keep feeding this well, like think of it like a community well, like if we keep adding to it, then when we need something, when we're feeling a little bit under-resourced, we can go back to it and say, I remember Paola said she's been painting. Gosh, I miss painting. Or Geraldine has been, making medicines. Like, I could do that too, right? So in terms of training for this marathon, I want to read something from this book called Consolations, the Solace, Nourishment, and Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words. And if you don't have this book, this is a nice one to have around when you need a little bit of guidance or a little bit of support. It's by David Whyte. I don't think I said that, but this is by David Whyte. He's a poet and writer and philosopher. And he takes one word and he'll kind of expand it into a meditation. So I wanted to read his meditation on the word maturity. All right, you ready? Get cozy. Here we go. Maturity is the ability to live fully and equally in multiple contexts, most especially the ability, despite our many griefs and losses, to courageously inhabit the past, the present, and the future all at once. The wisdom that comes from maturity is recognized through a disciplined refusal to choose between or isolate three powerful dynamics that form human identity: what has happened, what only looks as if it's happening now, and what is about to occur. Immaturity is shown by making false choices, living only in the past, or only in the present, or only in the future, or even living only two out of the three. Maturity is not a static, arrived platform, a golden epoch from where life is viewed from a calm, untouched oasis of wisdom, but the dissolution of living elemental frontiers between what has happened, what is happening now, and the consequences of our past. First imagined anew and then lived into the waiting future. Maturity is the breakdown of elemental frontiers between the different epochs of our life, between life and death, between the part of us that has been a fine, upstanding citizen and the darker, helpless parts of us that have caused harm and damage. Maturity is the time when these tidal forces meet and break apart our life, making one life out of our regrets, our self-compassion, and our forgiveness forged into a future made real by a radical change in our behavior. Real maturity can only be sustained by real silence, by a daily discipline of silence and an inhabitation of spaciousness, a foundational giving away. Maturity is the discipline of giving up and giving away to see what is left and what is real. Maturity calls us to risk ourselves as much as we did in our immaturity, but for a bigger picture, a larger horizon, for a powerfully generous outward incarnation of our inward qualities, and not for gains that make us smaller, even in the winning. Our previous stage of immaturity always beckons, offering us a false haven and false accounting, an ersatz safety in one state or another, a hiding place and a disappearance in the past, a false isolation of the present, or an unobtainable sure prediction of the future. But maturity beckons also, asking us to be larger, more fluid, more elemental, less cornered, less unilateral, a living conversational intuition between the inherited story, the one we are privileged to inhabit, and the one, if we are large enough and broad enough, movable enough, even here enough, just astonishingly about to occur. Let's just let that sit for a moment. So I'd love to hear in the chat what stood out to you, what struck you from that reading. Do we have any thoughts? I think I'll start us off. This line in particular really spoke to me. Real maturity can only be sustained by real silence, by a daily discipline of silence and an inhabitation of spaciousness, a foundational giving away. And when we sit in stillness and silence, the three parts of time start to dissolve. They collapse into each other. And I love the image of these waves of the past giving way into the present, into the future, but that they're always co-influencing one another. And maturity is being able to hold all three, like at the same time, to honor, like some of you were saying, we're remembering. And we need to remember the way things were. We need to remember, for me, like my heart is in the Neolithic age of the goddess, when we lived in villages and there was a high priestess and a council of women that ran the daily activities of the village, and the men contributed, and they were, men and women were equally sharing the gifts of the land, and nature was honored, right? Like I know that existed. I know it in my bones of bones. But if I stay too long in that remembering, I am not here and I can't go there. Anyone else relate to that? um, and if we envision the future as this like Pollyanna, everything's great, and we don't take into account what's actually happening right here on our own soil in this moment, then we also collapse. So there's this balance of the three that creates the mature person. And like I'm ready. I'm ready to be mature. I don't know about you all. Like I'm up for the challenge. Ren says the part where it talks about no matter the grief, getting up and going on struck me specifically. Yeah, thank you for pointing back to that. Yeah, it's like with even with that, part of maturity is being able to take the grief with you, take the grief and bring it along for the rest of the ride. Sierra also resonated with that, balancing grief and loss, but still moving forward. Yeah, Geraldine said heartfelt, so much wisdom in the old ways. Modern day life is another challenge. Yeah. Cheryl shared that maturity is dynamic and it's not a social assignment, but self development. That's such a good point. Dr. April says, yes, the art of silence, the heart of my practice in all time. Beautiful. Alexander says, the part about taking risk also spoke to me. Yeah. So I hope that reading gave you something to kind of hold on to, like a little hook that you can anchor yourself back into as you're moving through the rest of your evening and the weekend that's ahead of you is, what does maturity look like for you personally? And what are the elements of the past and the present and the future that you're dancing with? And for me personally, silence, I have a daily 5 minute sit practice that I do. It's not much. I know other people meditate more, but that's what I do. And then I have a daily drumming practice. And those are the ways that I give to myself each morning that silence so that I can remember who I am and where I am and what's happening before I start going into Aries, action mode. Um, and so you might reflect on what might be a practice for you. And, David says very clearly, there's something about the dailiness that helps us keep all three of these together because it's easy in the modern world to just be focused on what's ahead and to kind of forget to loop back in these other pieces. Amanda says, I like that it mentions living in the past, present, or future too much can be problematic. Staying in the present is so important, but it can lead to short-sightedness. Yeah, or short-sighted decisions. Exactly, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. And now I want to hear from you all. What are the things that you're doing to either continue the process of maturation or just to keep yourself centered these days? What gives you comfort? What is giving you ease? And if you want to raise your hand, we'll do short shares, or if you want to type it into the chat box, we can do that as well. But part of the gift, I think, of meeting live is that we can add these things. This is where we're going to start mixing the soup, everyone. All right, Darcy.
So the insight I got when you were reading, which is how my brain is wired, I'm listening and insight is coming in from here. It's sort of here and then here. um, was that the practice of fluidity. I went through 2 surgeries, 2 arm breaks, major environment. I know everyone's going through things, but I had to navigate the most difficult personal year I've had in my life. And what got me to this place of calm was anchoring back to my old meditation practice, learning what I had to learn to trust people, to ask for help. I don't do that normally. So it's been a beautiful gifting of so much support from unexpected direction. And that is what helped build the resilience and resource to be in a good state, even though I'm not completely, recovered in my function. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Darcy. Beautiful. Kate.
Hi. So I have been doing daily meditation with Ashley's husband because I'm a nightlight student. So that's how I came to this space. Um, and it's funny. I like just my basic story is that my mom was sick from before the pandemic through the pandemic and died Thanksgiving 2021. So that was my my worst time of my life so far. And it's funny, even just hearing Darcy say that a moment ago, I had this moment of distance that I feel from that because I'm not in it anymore. And knowing that someday in my future, there will be another time that is that hard, and it's not here
Mm.
and now, but it's not one and done with life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a poet, and last night I hosted a poet in my reading series for someone younger than me who has also gone through just devastating loss, and feeling that moment of trying to hold a space for someone else the way that other people have held space for me, and recognizing that I'm pretty good at knowing my limits, and so I can trust myself within that ambit once I know my limits.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you, Kate. Yeah, and I do think um just to piggyback on that, I was talking with a good friend and he was just saying, each of us has our own nature. And when we meditate or we have a practice like that, we get to touch into that nature. And I think Thich Nhat Hanh, who is like one of my heroes, a Buddhist monk, he's like, touch into the peace with his little voice. And um, he was just saying we have to touch into this essential nature that we have to know our limits and to be able to act and give as we can. So as Kate said, I have space to be able to hold a room for an emerging poet, for someone who's younger. I have capacity for that. Um, and you said that you've also learned when you don't have capacity. And yeah, that is a dance. That is a dance. And often we go to the extremes to learn the middle way. So thank you for sharing that detail too, about what you did and how you navigated that. So thank you, Kate. Amanda.
Hi. So my youngest is a teenager and has been having some pretty significant health problems, and I started feeling that caregiver burnout kind of thing. And so I got I got a stack of index cards and wrote out different self-care things that I could do, and like how long it takes, so meditation 15 minutes or journaling 15 minutes, and that kind of stuff. And so I have I can scroll through it kind of and have these reminders of things that I can do even when I don't have very much time, to make sure that I'm still taking care of myself too. Um, and then also, when you're doing a lot of caregiving, you can kind of lose some of the connections with community. And
Mm.
so I am hosting a potluck this weekend for Imbolc, to get my friends together and just kind of make sure make sure my community's still here, and that we can gather together and think about ways to respond to the world, and be a loving presence for everyone.
Wow, I love that. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, cheat sheets. There's nothing wrong with having cheat sheets or like cards or reminders. I have a little sticky note next to my mirror that has like rotating reminders that kind of help anchor. So that's a great idea. Things that you can flip through and say what feels like a right, fit for me right now. And to the community gathering piece, one of the things that's happening here in Minneapolis that is so amazing, and I'm guessing a lot of you have seen this or heard about this, is the neighboring that's happening. And it's real. Like I'm talking to my neighbors more than I have in the past and just checking in. There's so many community gatherings. We have one out on the lakes freeze up here. So we're going to have a frozen lake party, like a gathering within our neighborhood out on the lake. Kids are welcome, skates, you can bring your skates, but people are just, and no one's leading it. it's being self-organized. And I will say mostly by women. They have an idea, they share it with a friend, they start to gather some energy around it, and then it happens. And no one had to approve it. No one had to create a spreadsheet. It's a very organic thing. And it's healing our community. It's helping us. And so if you, like Amanda, have that instinct, like I want to gather people and have a potluck and make some soup and drop it all, do it. I think that's medicine is what that is. So thank you. Ciara.
Just wanted to say that Gainesville, Florida stands with Minnesota. So I took my oldest for her first protest and it was very peaceful and just looking for moments where I could teach my kids, pour into my kids what is in their power, what they can control, how to react when things feel out of control. How do you organize as a teenager when you feel like worried for your friends or you don't feel safe? So just being around other people that feel the same as us and looking for opportunities where you do kind of reclaim that agency. Um, and, explaining to my kids in an age appropriate way what's going on in the world and trying to kind of navigate that together and cohesively. And like you said, just looking for community and your village and ways to kind of help each other
Mm,
and making time for myself too, being here for me.
yeah, wonderful. Oh, I love that you're engaging your kids with this because they learn so much through modeling, like how your nervous system, how you regulate yourself and share that with them, and the tone that you speak about this with them is helping them develop that. And I can just feel that you're doing such a wonderful job. So thank you. Thank you for that. And there's all mothering and parenting children right now is an act of resistance, like teaching our children about equality and civil rights is work. Like that is part of resisting the evils that are and things that are just amoral in the world right now. So I have to remind myself that because I want to be like, oh, I want to go do all these things, but it's like, no, actually being home and parenting the next generation is part of the solution. So thank you, Ciara. Celia.
Yeah, I think that I'm most involved with being receptive and open to change because everything is changing and everything is changing in the world and everything is changing for everybody individually. And so I'm very connected with when I am with friends and so forth. I have a healing practice. I think trying to help all of us find the perspective of that things are not going to be the same.
Mm.
And I'm quite old, so I've been through a lot. So it's I have a perspective of other times when things were very, very bad. I mean, that's true for everybody. But I think that there's a surrender. That's when I was the one who wrote Remembering the Source of Our Being. I think we cannot at all sort out what is happening if we just limit it to our own perspective.
Mm.
And so the feeling that there's a much bigger plan, which will also carry us through. And I don't mean that in any sort of fanatical way or Pollyanna way, but
Yeah.
that we know so little.
Yeah.
And as you say, everybody, so many hearts are opening and so many incredible gestures of generosity are coming through that weren't going on before. And so there's an incredible healing that is taking place also.
Yeah.
And that's very much where I feel.
Thank you, Celia. That was so beautifully spoken. Yeah, because we are little drops of we're little people, and one of my teachers, Rukmini Walker, she would say it very often, remember your sacred smallness. And that's not to say that you're not valuable, but it's just that you're small. And that smallness is sacred in and of itself. And you can't make a good soup with one ingredient. You need a lot of ingredients that are high quality, that, have come from their own nourished soil. And then that's what makes the bigger changes. And Celia, when you were saying that, if we feel depleted and we feel like we don't have energy there's so many ways to tap into that larger field. And, it's for each of us to find, but when we do, it can be such a source of our own, of gaining our own energy and gaining perspective so that we have something of value to offer to the soup, to offer to the community and say, I know how to do this. How can I help? And I think when we really take our sacred smallness seriously, we can see that there is value in what each of us has to contribute. We just can't get stuck on it and think that we can do it alone or we're supposed to do it alone, right? Yeah. All right, I want to read through some of your comments here of other ideas and ways people are taking care of themselves. Let's see here. Quiet prayer before the sun, and at least one morning dance song for movement before breakfast and yoga. I love that, Joyous. What a lovely way to start the day. Yeah. 478 breathing, Ren has said, is helping me stay regulated. I try for 10 minutes at least once daily. One hand on the chest, one on the stomach, deep belly breath, 4 seconds inhale through the nose, hold for 7, exhale through the mouth for 8. Feels good. Thank you, Ren. So we can take that in our pocket, take that with us. Darcy, still trying to navigate myself since my husband died 4 years ago in a car accident. Oh, I've been doing so much work in the greenhouse, working with herbs and plants to heal myself. I know I cannot heal MS, but I can get as healthy as possible. Plus, I'm looking at having someone move in with me to have some, and my 3 puppies to be here with me because the MS is starting to keep me in bed. Trying not to get discouraged, women power. Oh, thank you for sharing that, Darcy. Yeah, and asking for help, it is hard. But it's also the sweetest thing. Like I think, who was it? Celia was saying the surrender, right? When we surrender, I have a friend right now who's leaving her body. She has stage 4 cancer. Gosh, she's just a lovely woman. And she is dying the most beautiful death. She's doing it with such grace and such surrender. She's already surrendered. And every day we talk and, she's at peace. There's moments where there's sadness and that's expected, but she has accepted that this is where she's going. And then she's on to the next great adventure. And I feel like, if we can live each day like that, like, okay, I'm going to accept this. And then there'll be another great adventure ahead. But we don't know what that is. None of us really know. Dr. April Hayslip says, so happy to be here with you all. I needed some powerful women time. I am an ecofeminist mythologist, professor and archetypal astrologer, longtime witch, herbalist yogini. This has all helped me survive terminal throat cancer. Tending collective intergenerational trauma is at the heart of my work, both in daily practices and in my writing and teaching. Art and poetry too, even in small doses. Happy to connect and support. And then she left her email. Thank you, April. That's awesome. Yeah. So it's like so funny. I feel like in these circles sometimes there's like whispers of like past life connections where it's like, I know we were together in Scotland, weren't we? We Bonnie lasses in our wool capes and like this isn't our first rodeo, is it? Um, so and remembering that on some level, that's true. On some level, that is real. And we can fold that into our skirts of today or our aprons or our jeans, we can fold that in. That's awesome. Katie said, I started my morning with Adam's 40 Days of Silence. And those of you that don't know, my husband, Adam Ellenboss, is leading a 40-day meditation offering, and it's free. It's open to anyone. Maybe someone could include the link in the chat if they could. And it's at 8:30, I think it's at 8:30 Central Time, which would be 9:30 East Coast time. And it's just a little brief opening, 20 minutes of sitting, a brief closing, and then you move on with your day. And sometimes we need people to hold us accountable. Sometimes if we're left to our own, it's harder to stick with a practice. So if you come to this, you'll have other people to just help you sit. They won't hold your hands down. They won't keep you from scrolling, but they they can try collectively to help you focus and know that you can sit too. So that's a great practice. I try to join Adam when I can. I have to drop off the kids at school, so I have to join a little late. But Katie, I'm glad that you're finding that helpful and that you're continuing to sit even after it ends. Cheryl says, hugging trees, sending them calm, relaxing love. Oh, I love that during the storms. Yeah. We are tender organisms who need a lot of care, aren't we? Natasha's trying to reduce having the TV on or listening to music or podcasts while doing tasks like washing dishes to help me be comfortable with silence. Yeah, I love that. Silence is so powerful, and it's true. I think we need time, and we need pockets of time where there's nothing new coming in. Otherwise, we'll never digest what's already there. Yeah. Thank you, Kate, for sharing that. Yeah. And then Ren shared the link to the Silent Sundays. Awesome. So I'd like to pull a tarot card from one of my trusted decks. This is a deck I've been working with since college. So that is like almost 30 years ago, or 20 plus years ago. And this deck is called The Flower Speaks. It's out of print. But what I love about it is that it brings together plant medicine, flower essence, and astrology kind of all into one space. And I don't know about those of you who do tarot know what I'm talking about, but when you've had a deck for decades and a long time, you become really bonded with it. It becomes a very reliable oracle. So last week, I pulled this card. Can you see it? It's the sunflower card. So last week, the theme and the message was leadership. And it was the energy of the sun and Leo and being courageous and stepping out into a role of organizing or action. And also remembering that the sun is inside of you. And so if you're starting to turn your head down like the sunflower at night, just remember that the sun will come up. So it's also a little bit of it's an essence for depression. So let's see what this one is, okay? So I'm going to sit with the deck and I'm going to ask the question, which is the most important part, which is what card and what plant is going to be most helpful for this group this week? Which card, which plant is going to be most helpful for this group this week? What card is going to be most helpful this group this week. Card is going to be most helpful for this group this week. Concentration, daffodil, spring, narcissus. But so it's a young man with a dog behind him. I don't know if I know my camera gets, can you see that? So let me read to you a little bit about daffodil. It's card number 1 in this deck. That's significant. So this week, we are being asked, I'm going to read the poem that she wrote with this. Today I heard angels in the sky blowing on yellow trumpets. They were blasting away winter blues. I saw green fingers reaching skyward out of the thawing earth. It was Persephone returning from the dead. On her head, I saw a single golden crown, a yellow daffodil in bloom. Beneath her slender, rosy feet, snow is melting. Earth is softening. Green grass is thickening. Last night in my garden, I saw her sleeping, her dark hair flowing, her heart budding with new dreams. So this is the spirit of the flower, is that of a fleet-footed hunter drawing in his energy through the powers of concentration. Like the arrow poised on its bow or the beagle zeroing in on the hunt, we sense that concentrated in breath before the leap into action. The beagle is a dog with a keen sense of smell. It symbolizes the ability to discriminate through the nose. The daffodil is a master teacher of how the world is made flesh. It teaches us that clear, unobstructed thought plays an important and magical role in all we create. It's kind of like the hollow stem, that connector between past, present, and future, right? Each spring, the daffodil heralds the beginning of a new season. Astrologically, daffodil is associated with the planet Mercury, which rules speech, thought, and our ability to reason. In mythology, Mercury is the traveling god with winged feet who carries messages from heaven to earth. When we hear the sound of the wind, we know that Mercury is carrying the word. By mastering the breath of life through voice or concentrated thought, we can learn to channel the divine mind, thus making it possible for word to be made flesh. What do we think? Perfect for in bulk, isn't it? Yeah. Persephone returning. This deck is called the Flower Speaks deck by Marlene Rodansky. So I think this card does, yeah, that's helpful, isn't it? Concentration. So we can each get curious this week, and maybe kind of turn up the volume of our concentration practices, whether that's your sitting time in meditation, singing. There was talk about the voice as well, and word and what we say. So concentrating and using our beagle-like sense of smell to sniff out and discriminate what to do and what not to do, where to act, where not to. And I also think about the daffodil as almost like an ear. So the trumpet is not always only something that we blow a sound out of, but trumpets were also things that brought sound in. The old hearing aids were like, remember in Lord of the Rings, the dwarf he can't hear, so he's got that daffodil trumpet he uses to hear. So we can think of it as, coming in and moving out. So I hope that is a helpful takeaway, along with our meditation on maturity, our lessons and gifts from everyone in this group. I feel like we made a beautiful soup together. Lots of ingredients that maybe we didn't know what to do with, but hopefully through our meeting and sitting and processing together, maybe you're coming out of it with some ideas some new ways to nourish yourself and ground yourself and share. Maybe there's new ways of sharing or gathering people, offering things in a new way. So let's take a few moments just to sit in silence. I think it's nice to close a container in the way that we open it. So if you're able to stick around, let's just sit with some silence. And take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Thank you all for joining in. We'll be here next Friday at a different time. So Fridays from here on out will be in the afternoons at noon East Coast time, 11 Central time. I think that's 8 o'clock Pacific time. And I'd love to see you again and again if you can make it. And if not, then merry meet, merry part, merry meet again. I hope our paths cross again someday. All right, everyone.